Right now, rescue crews are still moving through damaged neighborhoods in western Colombia. Families in Pereira are waiting for news. Buildings in Cali are being inspected, searched, and in some cases, abandoned. In Manizales, residents are confronting cracked structures and visible damage across parts of the city, and beneath all of this is a second concern that cannot be seen: the continuing sequence of aftershocks beneath western Colombia. On Monday, August 10, 2026, a magnitude 7.4 earthquake struck western Colombia with its epicentral region near San José del Palmar in Chocó. The earthquake occurred at considerable depth, roughly 107 kilometers according to early reporting, and the shaking was felt across a huge area. Pereira, Cali, Manizales, Quito, Armenia, and other communities experienced serious effects. By August 12th, Reuters was reporting that the death toll had risen above 250, with many more injured, displaced, or still being located. Those numbers may continue to change as authorities reach isolated communities and search damaged structures. If you are watching from Colombia, tell us in the comments what city you are in and what you experienced. Did you feel the main earthquake? Have you felt the aftershocks? Those first-hand reports matter, particularly when they can be compared with information from the Colombian Geological Service. And if you want facts-first coverage of major earthquakes, volcanic activity, and extreme natural events without exaggeration, subscribe. Let us aim for 5,000 likes on this report, so more people can find the scientific explanation behind of what is happening, because there is an important question underneath the images coming out of Colombia. Why did one earthquake produce serious damage across several cities separated by significant distances? And does the continuing seismic activity mean something even larger is about to happen? No guessing, no dramatizing, just the facts, the science, and the real stakes. Start with the earthquake itself. The August 10th main shock was reported at magnitude 7.4. That number describes the size of the earthquake at its source, but magnitude alone does not determine destruction. Depth matters. Distance matters. The type of ground beneath a city matters. The construction of individual buildings matters, and the vulnerability of the people inside those buildings matters. A magnitude 7.4 earthquake releases an enormous amount of seismic energy, but this event occurred much deeper than the shallow earthquakes that often cause extreme destruction directly above their rupture zones. Reuters reported a depth of about 107 kilometers. A deeper source allows seismic waves to travel through a broader volume of crust before reaching the surface, which can reduce the most concentrated shaking near the epicenter while allowing the earthquake to be felt across a surprisingly large region. That helps explain something many viewers noticed immediately. This was not simply a San José del Palmar earthquake. Communities across western Colombia felt it, and several major urban areas were damaged. Pereira has emerged as one of the hardest hit locations. Reuters reported more than 100 deaths there in one of its August 11th updates. Buildings collapsed, families searched hospitals and emergency lists, and rescuers worked through unstable debris looking for people trapped inside structures. One of the most remarkable rescues involved 2-year-old Daniela Largo, who was found alive after being trapped beneath the remains of a 4-story building. Reuters reported that she had been missing for nearly 38 hours before rescuers located her and then spent hours carefully freeing her from debris. That story is important for a reason beyond the emotional relief of one successful rescue. Collapsed buildings do not become safe when the main earthquake stops. Aftershocks repeatedly load already damaged columns, walls, foundations, and slabs. A structure that survived the first movement may have lost part of its original strength. A crack that appears cosmetic may be irrelevant, or it may be evidence of deeper structural deformation. That distinction requires qualified engineers, not guesses based on photographs. This is why entering a heavily damaged building simply to recover possessions can be dangerous while aftershocks continue. Now look southwest toward Cali. Cali is one of Colombia's largest urban centers, and the earthquake produced severe damage there as well. Buildings collapsed, medical facilities were affected, rescue teams searched debris, and emergency services faced an extraordinary surge in demand. Reuters' reporting placed Cali among the 2 cities with the greatest loss of life, alongside Pereira. But there is another layer to Cali's risk. Earthquake intensity at the surface is not controlled only by distance from the source. Local geology can change the motion. Seismic waves travel differently through hard rock and through softer sediments. The U.S. Geological Survey explains that when waves move from rock into softer soil, they can slow and increase in amplitude. In practical terms, two neighborhoods, roughly the same distance from an earthquake, can experience different shaking because the material beneath them is different. This phenomenon is usually called site amplification. Think of the ground beneath a city not as one uniform platform, but as a complex structure with rock, sediment, valleys, slopes, and filled areas. Those differences matter. Modern seismic hazard studies, therefore, do not ask only how big could the earthquake be. They also ask how strongly might the ground move at this particular location. A major USGS-led study published in the Bulletin of the Seismological Society of America examined seismic hazard and risk across South America using earthquake catalogs, fault geometry, ground motion models, and soil amplification. Lead author Mark D. Peterson and his colleagues concluded that damaging seismic hazard is significant along much of western and northern South America, including Colombia. Now move north toward Manizales. The visual damage there tells another part of the story. Reports have described cracked buildings, damaged facades, and structural concerns across parts of the city. Manizales sits within Colombia's mountainous coffee region, a landscape where earthquake hazards can interact with steep terrain, roads cut into slopes, and densely developed urban areas. And this is where an earthquake becomes more than shaking. Strong seismic motion can destabilize slopes. It can damage bridges. It can interrupt electricity and telecommunications. It can break water infrastructure. It can make mountain roads impassable. The earthquake lasts seconds or perhaps more than a minute. The infrastructure consequences can last months or years. But to understand why this particular part of Colombia is capable of producing earthquakes at all, the map has to become much larger. Colombia sits in one of the most tectonically complicated parts of the Americas. The Servicio Geológico Colombiano explains that the country is highly seismically active because several tectonic plates interact in and around the region, principally the Nazca, South American, and Caribbean plates. Along Colombia's Pacific side, the Nazca plate descends beneath the South American plate in a process known as subduction. Subduction sounds complicated, but the basic mechanism is straightforward. Earth's outer shell is broken into enormous moving pieces. They move only centimeters each year. That sounds insignificant. It is not. The USGS describes the South American subduction margin as a system extending more than 7,000 kilometers. In the northern part of the continent, the Nazca plate moves relative to South America at roughly 65 millimeters per year. That continuous movement has helped build the Andes and produces deformation and earthquakes throughout western South America. 6.5 centimeters per year, year after year, century after century. Let those numbers sit for a moment. The mountains surrounding these Colombian cities are themselves evidence that the landscape is geologically active. But there is an important distinction that has to be made. Active does not mean an earthquake is about to happen tomorrow, and an aftershock sequence does not automatically mean a larger earthquake is coming. More than 100 aftershocks were reported following the main shock as the crust adjusted to the sudden redistribution of stress. Aftershocks are normal following large earthquakes. They can continue for days, weeks, months, or longer, generally becoming less frequent with time, although individual strong aftershocks remain possible. This is one of the areas where misinformation spreads fastest after a disaster. Someone notices several earthquakes, someone posts a prediction, the date appears, then a magnitude, and then a claim that scientists are hiding the next major event. There is no scientifically reliable method that can tell the public the exact time, location, and magnitude of the next large earthquake. The Colombian Geological Service made this distinction explicitly when discussing its National Seismic Hazard Model in July 2026. The model is probabilistic, not predictive. It estimates potential future levels of shaking and risk. It does not produce a countdown clock to the next earthquake. Read that back one more time. Scientists can identify dangerous regions. They can study faults. They can measure seismicity. They can calculate probabilities. They can improve building standards. They cannot look at today's aftershocks and truthfully announce that a magnitude 8 earthquake will strike a specific Colombian city on a specific date. That claim would go beyond the science. And Colombia has already learned, painfully, why the distinction between geological hazard and human vulnerability matters. On January 25, 1999, the Coffee region was struck by the destructive Quindio earthquake. Official Colombian records describe a magnitude 6.2 event centered near Cordoba, southwest of Armenia. The earthquake devastated Armenia and surrounding communities and caused extensive damage across Quindio, Risaralda, Valle del Cauca, Caldas, and Tolima. A Colombian government report included in constitutional court records documented an early toll of 907 deaths and more than 4,200 injuries. It also concluded that most victims were caused by the partial or complete collapse of buildings. Later commemorations described the final death toll as exceeding 1,000. Notice something extraordinary about that comparison. The 1999 earthquake was much smaller in magnitude than the magnitude 7.4 event, now affecting Colombia. Yet magnitude is not a death toll calculator. The 1999 earthquake was shallow, around 17 kilometers deep, according to Colombian records, placing destructive energy much closer to communities above it. The 2026 earthquake was reported at roughly 107 kilometers depth. That difference matters enormously. But building performance matters too. Colombia has had seismic-resistant construction requirements for decades. The purpose stated in the country's earlier seismic code was explicit. Structures should resist small earthquakes without damage, moderate earthquakes without structural damage, and strong earthquakes without collapsing and killing occupants, even if repairable or significant damage occurs. That is a critical concept. Earthquake-resistant does not mean earthquake-proof. Engineers are often designing for life safety. The goal in an extreme event may not be to keep every wall perfectly intact. The goal is to prevent catastrophic collapse long enough for people to survive. And that leads to perhaps the most important lesson coming out of Pereira, Cali, and Manizales right now. The earthquake is natural. The disaster is partly engineered by human choices, where buildings are placed, how they are designed, whether construction rules are enforced, whether older structures are retrofitted, whether hospitals remain operational, whether emergency crews can reach damaged neighborhoods, whether residents know what to do during the first seconds of shaking. The contrast between two buildings on the same street can sometimes be more important than the difference between two earthquakes. Now there is another question circulating online. Are all of the earthquakes being reported around the world evidence that the planet is suddenly becoming more geologically active? The evidence does not support treating every geographically separate earthquake as part of one global chain reaction. Earthquakes occur constantly because Earth's tectonic plates are constantly moving. The clusters attract attention because human brains are very good at seeing patterns, particularly when several dramatic events occur close together in time. That does not mean every event is physically connected. Western Colombia does not need a mysterious global explanation for earthquakes. Its tectonic setting already provides one. Nazca, South America, the Caribbean plate system, the Andes, subduction, crustal deformation, millions of years of geological motion. This is not background noise. It is the architecture of the region itself. Let us be direct about the practical message here, because information without action is just anxiety. If you are in an affected area and another strong aftershock begins while you are indoors, the recommended action is drop, cover, and hold on. Get down so the shaking does not throw you to the floor. Protect your head and neck beneath sturdy furniture when possible, and hold on until the shaking stops. Do not automatically run toward an exit while objects, glass, and exterior materials may be falling. USGS specifically recommends staying indoors during the shaking rather than rushing outside. If you are already outdoors, move toward an open area away from buildings, walls, power lines, and objects that may fall. If you are driving, slow down and stop somewhere safe, avoiding bridges, overpasses, power lines, and other overhead hazards. After the shaking, expect aftershocks. Wear sturdy footwear where broken glass and debris are present. Do not enter a visibly damaged structure simply because the first earthquake has ended. Follow official inspection and evacuation instructions. Keep phones charged when power is available. Use text messaging where networks are overloaded. Know where family members will meet if communications fail. Keep essential medications, identification, water, a flashlight, and basic emergency supplies somewhere accessible. And most importantly, use official sources for seismic information. The Servicio Geológico Colombiano operates Colombia's seismic monitoring system and collects reports from citizens through its Seismology platform. Those observations help scientists evaluate how strongly earthquakes were experienced in different places. For people outside Colombia watching these scenes, there is another lesson. Preparedness often looks unnecessary until the exact moment it becomes essential. A secured cabinet does not make news. A building retrofit does not go viral. An emergency drill seems boring. Then the ground moves, and suddenly those quiet decisions become the difference between injury and survival. There is no way to erase Colombia's tectonic setting. The Nazca plate will continue moving. The Andes will remain geologically active. Earthquakes will continue to occur. But casualty numbers are not determined by geology alone. Better buildings matter. Emergency planning matters. Communication matters. Engineering matters. Education matters. And the next generation of structures can perform better than the previous one. So what is happening right now in Colombia? A major magnitude 7.4 earthquake struck western Colombia on August 10th. Pereira and Cali have suffered some of the most severe human losses. Manizales and other cities are dealing with structural damage and disruption. The communities in Chocó, near the epicentral region, remain particularly difficult to assess because terrain and damaged communications complicate access. Rescue and recovery operations continue. More than 100 aftershocks have been detected, and the casualty figures remain provisional as authorities continue accounting for people and reaching affected communities. What is not happening is equally important. There is no scientifically verified countdown to another giant Colombian earthquake. There is no evidence that today's aftershocks allow anyone to predict a precise future main shock, and there is no need to invent a mysterious geological mechanism when Colombia already occupies one of the most active tectonic environments in South America. The ground beneath Colombia has been moving for millions of years. Human civilization occupies only a tiny moment in that geological timeline. But during that moment, humans have acquired something previous generations did not have: seismic networks, modern engineering, probabilistic hazard models, rapid communication, trained rescue teams, and scientific understanding of why the ground moves. The earthquake cannot be negotiated with. The consequences can be reduced. That is the real story. For Pereira, for Cali, for Manizales, for Chocó, and for every city built above an active geological system, we will continue following the scientific and official updates as this sequence develops, including significant aftershocks, revised damage assessments, and new information from geological authorities. If you are in Colombia, tell us what conditions are like where you are, but please do not share unverified predictions as facts. Subscribe if you want continued facts-first coverage as the situation develops, and let us reach 5,000 likes so this explanation reaches people trying to understand what they are seeing. No guessing, no dramatizing, just the facts, the science, and the real stakes